Infrastructure is all around us. It is an integral part of living. From skyscrapers and shopping malls to hospitals, schools, and houses, we need infrastructure not only to boost our economy, but also to increase the safety and quality of employment, healthcare, and education. But have you ever thought of how exactly these structures were made? I mean, think about your own house. How did engineers know where exactly to place your kitchen, your bedroom, or even your bathrooms? How did they know the exact dimensions of your doors, stairs, and windows? How did they know what type of foundations to make for your house? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's because of what we call construction plans. Hi guys, I'm Annika Ong, and today I'll be telling you all about construction plans and how engineers use them to create the infrastructure that we see today. But first of all, what are construction plans? Construction plans are a series of documents that detail the design of a structure, the specific dimensions of each structural element like beams, columns, and footings, as well as the exact location of each member. They also include the schedule, costs, and budget of the whole construction project. Essentially, they are the instruction manuals that show engineers what they intend to build and how they intend to build it. Sounds simple, right? But what if I told you that using these construction plans isn't as easy as it sounds? In fact, a lot of engineers experience a myriad of problems when it comes to following these construction plans. Sadly, as a student, I still don't have enough experience in construction, but a couple of weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to interview a civil engineer who is closely involved in the construction industry. She is none other than Engineer Kathleen C. Lim, a 25-year-old Level 2 civil engineer who works in the DPWH NCR regional office. She usually works as a project inspector and assists the project engineer in supervising and monitoring the projects implemented by the department. Currently, she is handling a project whose scope of work includes the renovation and rehabilitation of an existing building. However, since the project is still underway, she isn't able to give me the exact location of the said building. She explained to me that before the renovation phase even started, the construction team already made sure that all construction plans were complete, along with other important documents like the contract and program of work. But the big problem is, the initial project plan was made way back in 2016, but was only implemented last 2020. With that, there were already a lot of discrepancies and differences between the approved plan and the actual condition of the building. Since the plan was made years before the project was bid out, the condition of the building unfortunately deteriorated even before the implementation phase began. Let's take a look at some pictures. As you can see, cracks on the slabs of the building formed over the years. Aside from that, Engineer Lim mentioned that the overhead tank was already corroded both on the inside and the outside. The pumps were no longer functional and had been worn out. The storm drainage and downspout were clogged with solidified earth materials, and the automatic fire protection system was damaged and dilapidated, along with the existing roofing. These problems and items of work were not considered during the planning stage and were not noted down in the initial construction plan since they practically didn't exist back in 2016. But as a consequence, the construction team had to make major changes to the project's scope of work, cost, schedule, and budget. Particularly, some items in the original contract had to be deleted or decreased in quantity to give priority to the functionality and safety of the building, which are the two most important factors to consider. They had to prioritize rough-ins, as well as the replacement of the pumps, the roofing, the overhead tank, and the fire protection system of the building. Retrofitting of the cracked slabs was also considered a major change in order to maintain the structural stability of the building. Nonetheless, aside from making these changes, the project inspector, along with her team's planning division, solved these problems by properly coordinating with their consultant, contractor, and end user. And they made sure to inform them about all the necessary changes that they had to make in the original contract. They ensured that all works were performed in accordance with the approved plans, building codes, and specifications. And to avoid miscommunication, all of these revisions were discussed through both letters and meetings with the concerned officials. Ultimately, these changes affected the original cost of the project, as the team had to consider the deletion and inclusion of several items of work. Implementing these additional changes also affected and delayed the time schedule of the team. With all that being said, the interviewee expressed to me that as a young civil engineer, she learned a lot of valuable lessons from this experience. One lesson she learned is that strict compliance with the approved plans and specifications is one of the most important things that every single engineer needs to remember. Otherwise, it could affect the stability and structural integrity of the building. She also learned that if any revisions or clarifications are to be made with the original plans, they must first be properly and efficiently coordinated with the project inspector or project engineer, and must be formally requested and approved by the consultant or designer. On my part, I learned a lot from hearing Engineer Lim's experiences working in the construction industry. It became a lot clearer to me how communication is such an important aspect in all stages of the project's implementation. As I mentioned earlier, construction plans are essentially the instruction manuals that engineers refer to when creating infrastructure. So that's why it's really important that these plans leave no room for misunderstanding, or else that would compromise the integrity of the building. Aside from that, I also learned that it isn't sufficient to just blindly follow whatever construction plan you're given. Critical thinking is an important part of each stage in the project. Like for example, in Engineer Lim's case. Her team had to first survey the building before they proceeded with the implementation of their construction plan. If they had not done that, then the poor condition of the building would have remained and posed further risks for the future users of the building. Lastly, I learned that problems and revisions like these are inevitable, so it is up to us civil engineers to be ready to solve them by efficiently and systematically coordinating with the proper officials. This would make the project more smooth and less time-consuming, which is more ideal for the client. So that's the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for listening and hope you learned a lot about construction plans today. So see you again soon and hope you have a nice day.